Do you work in shifts? And have you struggled with sleep? Have you been wondering if it is the shift work that has caused your insomnia? Or are you wondering if maybe you have to stop working shifts so that you can leave this insomnia struggle you've been in? Perhaps because of this reason, we often hear that you need to have regular sleep times not to struggle with sleep. If you said yes to any of the above, then this class is for you. In this episode, we're going to see what truly causes insomnia and what leads out of that struggle, regardless of if you work shifts or not. Welcome to another episode of Insomnia Insight, in which we are going to talk about shift work. It is a topic that comes up every now and then. And by the way, if you're not working shifts, there are some general principles in this episode that applies to all versions of the struggle we call insomnia. Now, before we get into it, actually, you may be noticing that there is a new book right there, right behind me. It is called Principles of NATO, and it just came out about a week ago from today on Amazon. And it is one where I've poured years of pondering into. And it is, if you're looking for, if you're struggling with sleep right now and you're looking for something that will be really helpful on this early part of the journey, this is not for you. Because it's not even about insomnia. It's about like the general principles that we have learned from the insomnia struggle and applying them to what I call every version of the inner struggle. I'm arguing that whether it is OCD or anxiety or trouble losing weight or smoking or essentially all of what we call mental health today, is just one struggle. It's all just facets of one struggle. The anatomy of that struggle is the same. And so if that topic appeals to you, check out Principles of NATO. I'm very, very happy with it. And to everyone who's already gotten the book, that's amazing. Thanks so much for all your support. I'll probably make like a formal announcement video soon. But anyway, just a little comment on that. Now to the shift work episode. So we're going to talk about, we're going to break this up into 5 sections. 1, can shift work cause insomnia? 2, can I set my circadian rhythm forever? Then we talk about sleep window considerations, sleep hygiene considerations, and finally, what truly matters. Let's jump into the first section. Can shift work cause insomnia? And if you're working shifts, whether it is like regular shifts, like 3 days of the week, you work from like 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. or something like that, or you have these like variable shifts where it kind of moves forward in a non-regular fashion. That it doesn't matter. You may have had this question either way. You may have wondered if like that the fact that you're working shifts has caused your insomnia. So it really is helpful to understand what we're going to talk about to answer this question. And the answer is that insomnia really happens when our human brain, misclassifies not sleeping, aka being awake, as a threat. And that leads to insomnia because when we find ourselves awake, I usually say when we find ourselves awake at night, but it doesn't have to be at night. It can be like when we find ourselves awake, when we think we ought to be sleeping, and we think, oh no, this shouldn't be happening. This is bad. This is a threat. Then it makes us hyper alert, hyper vigilant, hyper aroused. We're in this like threatened state, which of course produces more wakefulness. And then we again sleep a little. And then we think, oh no, this is real. Like I'm really in a threatened situation now. And that feeds into this idea that we are threatened, which keeps us awake more. And you see, this is the loop that we call insomnia, right? So this loop happens when our brain thinks of not sleeping, whether it's day or night, whenever we're quote unquote supposed to be sleeping. That is what leads to insomnia. And working shifts that cannot in itself and by itself cause our brain to think of not sleeping as a threat. However, it of course, starting to work shifts can have been like the sort of like the trigger in 2 ways that we'll look at in a second. So the typical way that insomnia happens is that we're not struggling with sleep. then we are in a stressful time in our lives. Maybe we had a baby, maybe we are going to college and have a big exam, or maybe we are coming off a medication. When we started some medication for a medical thing, maybe you have a medical condition, maybe we're going through menopause, something is happening, right? And that something is stressful, and it naturally keeps us awake, and anything that is stressful to us is going to keep us awake. That's just a normal part of our stress response. We're supposed to be a little more vigilant, a little bit more alert, to make sure we are not harmed in any shape or form. But this sleep disruption, this change in sleep patterns that happens when we're stressed, that our brain can start to think of as like, oh no, this shouldn't be happening. This sleep disruption, this wakefulness, this absence of sleep shouldn't be happening. And that's kind of the moment when insomnia is born, when our brain misclassifies not sleeping as a threat. That's the most common way insomnia happens. We have sleep disruption due to stress, and we start to think of that sleep disruption as a threat. But it can also happen, insomnia can also start when we are simply misinformed. And this is somebody who's just, living their life, sleeping well, and then read a book where it says that, oh, if you don't sleep, 8 hours every night, you're going to get cancer. And they go like, oh my gosh, not sleeping, this is a real threat. Like, it can happen that way too. And by the way, there's no evidence whatsoever that not sleeping causes any health issues, just so that's clear. So you can see here that shift work can be the starting point of insomnia in two ways. It can happen that we start working shifts, and that causes some disruption to our sleep. Not necessarily because, it could be because the shift work is like stressful and we worry about our new job and we're thinking about it. Yeah, that can keep us awake. But it can also be simply for circadian rhythm factors, right? That we're not typically sleeping from, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or something like that. That's not typically when we sleep. So it takes naturally, our sleep is not the same as it would otherwise, right? So there can be some disruption. It can take a little bit longer for us to fall asleep. We wake up a little bit more fitful, something like that. Shift work can lead to sleep disruption, and then our brain can go like, "Oh no, what if I don't sleep? Why is this happening? I should be sleeping now, etc., etc." And that misclassification can happen as a consequence of shift work in this way that we just described. And this concern around sleep disruption can cause insomnia for sure. But it can also be that we're working shifts, and we happen to read some article that says like, oh, shift work causes you to sleep less than you should, and this is harmful for your health. You read this in some article, and you go like, oh no, not sleeping is a threat. This is not good. It can happen that way too. So these are just two examples of how starting a shift work or working shift can lead to insomnia, but it's not the shift work in itself that does that. It is not the shift work in itself. It's what I want to point out there. So we have answered the question here of, can shift work cause insomnia? No, it cannot. Only that misclassification of wakefulness as a threat can cause insomnia, can cause that ongoing struggle that we call insomnia. But of course, shift work can cause some sleep disruption. Now, this is going to be very brief, but I have gotten this question a couple of times where somebody said, hey, I worked shift works for I worked this particular shift for 25 years, and I still wake up like very, very, very early. Have I set my circadian rhythm forever? No, the answer is no. It is a flexible system. Of course, if we've had a certain habit for many, many years, then it's not surprising that our circadian rhythm has, is currently in a certain phase or whatever we call it, where we wake up at a certain time, but that can change. If you imagine somebody who wakes up 4 a.m. every morning because they worked as a, baker for many years, right? And then they moved from like Finland to Australia. Are they going to wake up 4 a.m. in Australia? Of course not, right? The things are going to change and shift, and that the circadian rhythm, the inner clock we have, is a flexible one. So it's not like we can set that forever. Just want to point that out. Now here's some considerations that come up very often when we have a student with shift work. So oftentimes we hear that we can hear from the traditional CBT-I world that it is very important when you have a sleep struggle, when you have insomnia, that you get up the same time every morning and that you go to bed at a certain time. Like this, clock time can seem very important. And then, of course, if we work shift work, we can be like, but I can't do that. I cannot have a regular alarm in the morning because my shifts change. Either they change on a kind of rolling basis, or they have certain nights where I have to get up this time and other nights where I have to get up that time, right? And so here we have to talk about these sleep window considerations. And the first thing I want to say is this, that let's say somebody's not working shift work and they have had a struggle with sleep, then I would say, oftentimes a regular alarm in the morning, it can help. It can be helpful. But what matters to see is the why here. Why is this helpful? Is it because it will regularize your circadian clock? Is it because it will help you build sleep drive so you're like sleepy enough in the evening? No, it has nothing to do with this. And we can see this because we know that insomnia is driven by this misclassification in the brain. It is an educational piece that's missing, right? And that misclassification leads to fear. It's an emotional struggle, right? And circadian rhythm in itself, sleep drive in itself, has nothing to do with that. So the reason this, like having, let's say, an alarm in the morning where we just get up and start at 8, why that can be helpful is because it can lead us away from chasing sleep. It can lead us away from this time where we're like, we get up in the morning, then we check in the time, like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to get up now, but I haven't slept. I need to stay in bed to continue trying to get sleep. And chasing sleep is the same thing as trying to escape wakefulness, right? So when we're chasing sleep, we're trying to escape wakefulness. Both are maintaining this idea that not sleeping, being awake, is a threat. So that chasing sleep behavior can keep us in the insomnia loop. But when we have an alarm and we're like, okay, this is when my alarm goes off, now I'm going to start my day regardless of what the night was like, that can lead away from chasing sleep. That can lead to a place where our brain sees like, oh, we don't have to chase sleep. We don't have to be afraid of being awake. We don't have to be afraid of not sleeping. We don't have to try to get as much sleep as possible. Oh, maybe there is no threat after all, right? So that can be helpful. And structure can actually be freeing, meaning when we, let's say we don't have any structure at all. We're just, spending most of our day just like thinking about how to get more sleep and thinking how to, what experiment we can do next, what we can try, right? And that can apply to like sleep times as well. Not only can we be chasing sleep, but we can be, trying to take naps, like trying to go to bed later, and experiment in that in many shapes or forms. But if we have some structure, if we say like, okay, I'm not going to check the time before this time, I'm going to set my alarm at this time, then that can take away so much of that time spent like problem solving. And structure can be freeing. You can be like, okay, so that's it. I don't have to problem solve. I don't have to think about this. I don't have to experiment. So structure can be freeing in that sense. And the thing is that a regular alarm is not in itself important. It's not what matters. So if you have shift work, no, there's nothing here of concern. Like you can leave in some struggle without having a set alarm in the morning, without having like some a particular structure. And remember that there are millions of people in the world who work shifts and who have some disruption to their sleep, but don't have any insomnia whatsoever, don't struggle with sleep whatsoever, and not concerned about sleep at all. And you can, like, if you hear this and you go like, okay, this idea of like not chasing sleep, that appeals to me, and the idea of having this like some structure to keep me from experimenting and problem solving, that appeals to me, then guess what? You can create this sleep window, this timeless sleep window, regardless of whether you work shifts or not. So if you have, if you work a particular shift, let's say 3 nights of the week, then you could be like, okay, these nights I'm going to work from, I'm just going to make something up, but I'm going to work from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and I'm going to be home at 7 a.m. Well, guess what? Then I'm gonna think of it this way: from 8 a.m. and until 3 p.m. I'm not going to check the time. Like starting at 8 a.m., I'm not going to check the time. I'm just going to do something I enjoy, something that's nice. Maybe I'm just going to rest. And if I sleep, that's great. If I don't sleep, then I'm going to make that wakefulness as easy for me as possible. And I'm not going to know the time until my alarm goes off at 3 p.m. And then, I'm going to start my day. Or if you have a rolling schedule, if you will, you can do the same thing. You can just kind of think about when you come home, and think about how you probably want to do something, maybe eat or shower or something like that when you come home, right? And then think about like, okay, after that, then I'm going to start this like timeless sleep window. I'm not going to know the time from this time until my alarm goes off. And you can create this for yourself regardless if you work shifts or not. But again, this is not what matters, which this is going to lead to what truly matters, which comes in the end. But here we want to know that like having that regular alarm, nothing that's important or really matters. Many people have left the struggle without having any like alarm clock at all, right? Or having any, not even having any structure at all. So it's not what matters. But now let's talk about sleep hygiene considerations, because this often also comes up a lot. Like we hear that when we work shift works, it's really important to keep the bedroom like super dark, keeping it super silent, and you might be wondering if this is something you should really focus on if you're working shift work. And I would say that there are some like extra challenges, let's say, to sleeping easily when we work shift work, because during the daytime there may be more noise, there is surely more light, right? So I think of it this way, that sleep hygiene, it can be something that helps with sleep disruption. Many of us prefer sleeping when it's dark. We prefer sleeping when it's not very noisy, but it's not everyone. My wife, by the way, who's from the Philippines, when she first moved to where we live now, she was so not used to road sound. She's like, it's so quiet. Like, where are all the trucks and the noises and the dogs and the chicken and like that? And she had a hard time sleeping initially. She said like sleep disruption from absence of noise, which I'm just bringing up to show that like it's all like, are the human brain so flexible, right? But anyways, most of us prefer when it's not so noisy, when it's not so bright, right? So having some blackout curtains, keeping it, maybe some earplugs, something like that, if that helps with some sleep disruption, why not? It's totally fine. But remember, this struggle we have with sleep, insomnia, that happens when we treat wakefulness or sleep disruption as a threat. If you're like really trying to escape it, if you're like, oh no, this can't happen, I can't wake up again, I have to sleep now, this is not acceptable to me. Like when we kind of desperately try to escape sleep disruption or escape being awake, and then we can maintain this insomnia loop. So if we go like, oh my gosh, the reason I'm not sleeping is because my bedroom is too light, I have to get those blackout curtains tonight, I have to install them, and then I'm going to sleep. Then we can see that, oh, now I'm thinking of not sleeping as a threat, rather than like, oh yeah, it could help to have it a little bit darker at night. Maybe I'll do that, right? Now we're just thinking of it as like a practical, kind of commonsensical thing. So that's something to keep in mind. And now to what truly matters, which we've already mentioned, but really what matters is the following: that if you work shift works or not, what really helps is befriending rather than antagonizing, thinking of what we're going through not as a threat or dangerous, but something that we understand, and something that we can move towards accepting and being willing to experience. So befriending really has these like 3 elements, and the first one is just cognitive understanding. And the cognitive understanding is a lot of what we talked about here, which is shift work cannot cause insomnia. Being awake at night is not harmful to our health. Sleeping in shifts as well, I've not seen any evidence that in itself is harmful to our health. So just logically, intellectually understanding that there's nothing that is threatening to us, there is no danger at all, that is really helpful. That's the section A, let's say, of befriending. And the second one is, see the invitation to experience that which we have tried to avoid. So if you, in the concept of shift work, this is like, you come home sometime in the morning, let's say, and you haven't slept much in the past, and you've tried, with the supplements, acupuncture, medications, breathing techniques, yoga, meditation, you've tried all these things to make you sleep. And now you see like, oh, these were my attempts to escape being awake, to escape sleep disruption. Let me do it the other way. Let me see if I can find myself awake in the morning when I'm, when it's my time to sleep, kind of opportunity to sleep, without trying to escape that. Instead, I can read something interesting, listening to a nice podcast, or just rest and expose myself to that which I was trying to avoid before. That is really helpful. And that is the second section of befriending. And thirdly, self-kindness. Oftentimes we can hear everything that we heard like in this class, and we're like, oh, I'm going to befriend wakefulness instead. When I find myself awake, I'm going to do something nice for myself. But then instead we go to like our previous default, which was like, Googling or like problem solving and experimenting. And that's just an invitation to be kind to ourselves. Like, we're all human. It takes a lot of time, a lot of courage often to find ourselves ready to not try to escape or evade. And the kinder and gentler we are with ourselves, the easier our journey is going to be. And in conclusion here, what we talked about here, the befriending, this is how all insomnia fades away, regardless of if we have worked shifts or not. That is what truly matters. And this is how we find peaceful sleep and peace of mind. Let us conclude there. If you had a question that was not answered, place it in the comment section, and we can add to the value of this class by having a nice discussion there. So I'll conclude here. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon. Bye now. Hi there. I hope that you loved the video you just saw and it offered you a ton of value. Speaking of value, I want to share some tips if you are somebody who likes to read and wonders which book you should check out. I would say if you are new to our teachings, new to this channel, definitely check out Set It and Forget It, because it is an easy read. All the concepts are very simply described. It has nice illustration. It's very flowy. It is a great place to start. Now, if you understand the basic concepts, but you're still not really seeing what insomnia is about or how they apply to you, then I would say check out This is NATO. That just goes a step deeper. And it is really, really aligned with how we see insomnia now. And Set It and Forget It is great, but it has some concepts that are like a little bit oversimplified, if you will. And so This is NATO is a great next step. Now, if you've read both This is NATO and Set It and Forget It, or you find that in theory, I understand everything, I just look for something that offers some hope and inspiration, then I would say check out Tales of Courage. It has stories from 26 people who have left their journey with sleep. It's a really powerful book. Now, finally, if you understand everything really you need to understand about insomnia, maybe you've left the struggle with sleep, but you want to understand how our approach could apply to panic attacks, to OCD, to weight loss, to wanting to stop smoking, or any other version of the inner struggle, then definitely check out Principles of NATO. This book is more of like a textbook. It's a bit more dense. It's not necessarily an easy read, but it has like all the answers to every version of the inner struggle that we find ourselves in. So those are my tips for you. Hope you found this valuable, and I look forward to seeing you soon again. Bye for now.